Hey guys, today I'm going to be talking about the organelles found in both animal cells and plant cells. And as I go through all these organelles, I'll be sure to tell you which ones are found in animal cells, which ones are found in plant cells, and which one are found in both. So the first organelle that I want to talk about is the nucleus. The nucleus is the brain of the cell. It controls all processes and basically is a very important part of the cell. The reason it's very important is that it contains chromosomes made of DNA that is wrapped with special proteins called histones into a chromatin network. And these chromosomes contain genes which obviously code for DNA, which in turn code for polypeptides. And these proteins are basically the basic function of the cell to create these proteins. And that's what the cell does. So the nucleus having these chromosomes alone makes it important. So I'll write down a few things about the nucleus. Contains chromosomes. And brain of the cell. One thing I want to add about the nucleus is that it's surrounded by a nuclear membrane that controls passage of materials in and out of the nucleus. So I'll write down here it contains. The next organelle I want to talk about is actually an organelle inside of the nucleus, and it's called the nucleolus. Nucleolus. The nucleolus is a prominent region inside the nucleus of a cell that is not dividing. Basically, the only thing you really need to know about the nucleolus is that components of ribosomes are made here, and so components. They're synthesized there or made. The nucleolus is not a heavily tested organelle on either the SAT2 and the AP Bio, but you should know that fact right there. And I'll just draw a diagram of what the nucleus and the nucleolus would look like. So basically, you'll see a nuclear membrane that'll come around, and your nucleus is basically everything inside this membrane right here. And there'll be a small circular organelle called the nucleolus, where components of the ribosomes are made. So now you're probably wondering what a ribosome is, and I talked about it a little bit when I was mentioning the nucleolus, that components of the ribosomes are synthesized there. But the ribosome is a site of protein synthesis. So ribosome. Ribosomes are particles made of ribosomal RNA and protein, and they're not bound or membrane-bound organelles, meaning they're free in the cytoplasm usually, or they can be bound to the endoplasmic reticulum, which I'll talk about later as well. A single cell, such as a human liver cell that produces large amounts of protein, contains millions of ribosomes. So basically, the more protein a cell creates, the more ribosome it has. And that makes sense when you think about it. And now we'll talk about the endoplasmic reticulum. And the ER, or the endoplasmic reticulum, plasmic. The ER is a system of membrane channels that traverse the cytoplasm. There are two types of ER. There's a smooth and the rough. So now the rough ER, which what makes it rough is the ribosome. And so you'll have ribosomes all over a rough ER, and that's why they call it rough. It's a site of protein synthesis, and you're probably wondering, why is a ribosome any different from a rough ER? It's that the rough ER, it synthesizes proteins using the ribosomes and then sends them off to the Golgi apparatus, which I'll be talking about next. So contains ribosomes. The smooth ER, on the other hand, has many other functions. It doesn't synthesize proteins, but it serves four main functions. So I'll just go ahead and list those right. The first is that it makes or synthesizes steroid hormones and other lipids. So makes steroid hormones. Secondly, it connects the rough ER to the Golgi apparatus. So connects Golgi apparatus. The next one is that it detoxifies a cell, and that's pretty important for obvious reasons. And lastly, it serves an important role in carbohydrate metabolism, and that's not as important as the rest of them, but a good thing to know. The next organelle that I want to talk about is the Golgi apparatus. And the Golgi apparatus is where proteins come, and the Golgi apparatus actually modifies, stores, and packages these substances produced in the rough endoplasmic reticulum and sends them to specific parts of the cell. So I'll just write that down for you guys. Packages and stores and sends proteins to specific parts. And there's basically two types of proteins that'll be sent from the Golgi apparatus. And those two are the ones that are membrane bound and the ones that stay in the cell. And we'll talk about that a little more later. So if we're talking about the general process of a protein and its packaging, it usually goes from the ribosomes of the endoplasmic reticulum to the Golgi, from the endoplasmic reticulum, to the Golgi apparatus, and then to specific parts of the cell. So I'm going to talk about some other organelles, and all the organelles that we've talked to at this point are found in both the plant cells and animal cells. So the next organelle that I want to talk about is the lysosome. The lysosome is a sac of hydrolytic or digestive enzymes that are enclosed by a single membrane, and it's the principal site or the main site of intracellular digestion. And the cell basically when it breaks down, the lysosome digests all these like recycling and breaking cell parts, and it's also a big part of programmed cell death. Apoptosis is what it's called, and we'll learn a little bit more about that later. And it's a critical part of the whole development of embryos and all that. So basically intracellular digestion. One other thing I want to mention about the lysosome is that it's only found in animal cells. So only animal cells. And keep that in mind as we move on. So this video has gotten pretty lengthy, so I'm going to cut it off and make a part 2. And part 2, I'm doing part 2 because we have two main organelles I want to talk a little bit more in depth about in the mitochondria and the chloroplasts, and we'll talk about that and a few other minor organelles. And we'll finish up this organelle segment and move on to transport. Thanks for watching.